Hello, everyone. I am here again with another interview from this series at Peace Teachings. I am very excited that today I have my friend Laura Mendez. She, as me, is a Costa Rican and she's an expert in nutrition. Her background is interesting because she studied to be a veterinarian and then she studied nutrition and the holistic health coaching institute is the IIN, right? And she is the founder of Holistic Health Coaching. And also, she has a beautiful planner that is called the Freedom Planner. She does moon dances. She knows everything about hormones. She has a food school. She knows everything, and she is my go-to when I have questions about gut health or nutrition and everything because she is a box of surprises. Hi, amiga. How are you?
Hola, thank you, Pau, and thank you everybody for being here. Very, very grateful for this opportunity to share with you. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the.
You're welcome. And I forgot to mention, she does sound healing and breath work, and it's amazing. So if you're ever here in Costa Rica, do a sound healing with her, combined with the breath work. Oh my God, that's just amazing. But today we're not here to talk about sound healing or breath work. We can mention it, but today we're here to talk about how food foods create moods, or food creates moods, right? And I remember, I don't know who said it. Maybe I heard it from someone from the IIN. But when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that is so true. How food can dictate how we feel, and how it's also dictating how our hormones behave. And the whole hormone conversation is a big conversation. But Lau, you've said that you would like to share with us the principles of how it is to eat healthy, to have a healthy life, to have and not also because of looking good, but also to live well and to have an active spiritual experience. You have to be good in your body temple. So tell us, what are those principles that you teach your students online about about health?
Help.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing, I love to keep things simple. So I've learned along the whole process of health coaching that one of the most important things is to keep things as simple as possible. So I'm gonna try to convey the same message, and I'm gonna give you some general guidelines regarding to food. However, I want to mention beforehand that food is one side of a multiple figure that has many, many, many sides related to health. So we can touch that later if you want, just a little bit here and there. But health is not just what we eat and the exercise, it has to do with all the rest of our life.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, my first recommendation, number one, is to go from go to a 90 to 95% plant-based type of eating. This will mean that only 5%, if so, will be animal-based. This is quite important. And something that I learned that I'm very grateful is that because I was in vet school and I graduated from vet school, I understood how animals are treated in a normal day-to-day base, how the intensive systems work, what are the animals exposed to, and based on this, what that we learn, how we can bring that into the health coaching, which is absolutely amazing to have those two perspectives. So one of the first things is diminish animal consumption, because when we're eating animals, we're not just eating the muscle or the fat or the proteins, or, we're also eating the energy of that animal. So this is key for us, because sometimes we believe like, or we think like, we're so stressed all the time. We are so like anxious, we're so depressed, or we're so fearful. And yeah, there can be many layers around that, but we have to also see what are we eating, what energy are we eating, and how that food is actually changing our microbiome that is also changing our thoughts and our moods. In case somebody still wants to eat meat or eat animal products, I always suggest to really get the ethically raised, the range-fed, grain-free type of alimentation that they have on nature. And it's difficult to say that ethically slaughter, because it's kind of doesn't make sense, but there's ways that can happen in a more compassionate way. So far, so good.
So far, it's perfect. So what you're saying is that if you want to improve your health overall, the first suggestion is to make your diet 90% plant-based. As meat is not only not the greatest for the composition of the meat, but the energy of it, as animals are treated very poorly in the industry. So that would be your first suggestion. 90% vegetables, and would you say grains too, and legumes and all those things? Okay.
Whole food, whole foods is quite important. But I can give you more tips, or we can go a little bit into that. However, what I would do recommend is no dairy whatsoever. This is one of the main things. So we're saying 5% animal products, but as much as possible, I would suggest and recommend to not eat dairy. And if that's the case and you cannot survive without dairy, I would also suggest do it once in a while. And when you're gonna eat it, really, really enjoy it. Don't feel guilty, but find a good source. Because the principle of holistic health coaching and food school is actually to not forbid, because when you forbid something, then you want to crave it, you want to eat it more. So we're always leaving space for people make their own decisions regarding to food, following general guidelines. However, if you still decide to go and consume something that is not so good, at least find a good source. That will be like the main thing. However, dairy is one of the big no-nos that I would say at least like maybe once in a month, if so, or even less.
All right. And so we're talking about how food creates moods. So what would you say is the benefit of turning 90% plant-based and stopping the dairy? What have you seen it has helped you in your life and in the life of your clients? What changes do you have?
Amazing. So first of all, nowadays, I would say a lot of the people of maybe 50 up are starting to consume, and maybe even earlier, starting to consume drugs for controlling cholesterol. And in English, the word is, can't remember the word in English, but, and I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but the fat, or the ways that the fat travels in our blood. So
Triglycerides?
Yes, thank you. Like triglicéridos in Spanish. Triglycerides in English. Thank you. So many people are consuming that, and it's like normal. But that's only covering the part. It's not really going to the root of the problem. So we have to see that many of those extra fats are actually coming from animal produce or animal products. So when you start going 90 to 95% plant-based, your body's gonna recover easily, or it's even gonna get to the point where it doesn't actually need those type of medications because you're not consuming that amount of fat.
Mm-hmm.
And we always say, or it's a good way of seeing it, that when you see protein, animal protein equals amount of fat. It doesn't matter if the protein is lean, there's also going to be a certain percentage of fat that the liver is going to have to process and see what are we going to do with this fat. So this is how it eventually becomes in this problem for the body. So we give them the pills, but we don't go to the root of the problem, which is manage your food choices.
Right, right. Okay. And so people reduce triglyceride levels, they reduce cholesterol levels. What about the mood? What about
Well,
because Peace Teachings is all about teaching techniques and tools that would bring more peace into our lives. So do you believe that, or have you seen that this is going to change how we feel and how we navigate the world?
Yes, because this also creates inflammation in your gut, and it creates extra work for the liver. So when we have inflammation in our guts, this inflammation, it's not like only in the gut, it starts there, but all the transmitters that are produced, or all the messengers that are used in the blood to communicate from cell to cell, they're not only in the gut, but the inflammatory messengers are going to be spread all over your body. So this inflammation will also be affecting all the different organs in our bodies, including or affecting quite obviously our mood. Because when you are inflamed and you are bloated and you haven't gone to the bathroom maybe for 2 days, or maybe you ate something and immediately you have pain, there's inflammation there. And how do you feel? How do you react? You're not joyful, you're not like jumping and exercising and being at peace, you're in pain. You're like, I don't want to do anything. Your energy levels drop also, and you feel moody. Especially when the liver, for example, is taking too much and having extra loads of work, because we're giving the liver extra fat because of our food choices. The liver gets moody, for saying it somehow. It's overwork, like too much stuff going on. And what happens is, that's why people say, there's sayings in Spanish about, oh, it's your liver, or is your vesicula biliar, which is your,
I don't know.
I'll remember, but it has a complete relation with the emotions of anger or anxiety or depression, or just snapping at everything because your gut is inflamed. So this is the relationship, like the most obvious.
Yeah, I've heard that when people drink and they get really angry, what we call in Costa Rica the cowboy drinker, they start fighting everyone. It's because alcohol is overstimulating the liver, or the liver is doing all the work to get rid of the toxins of alcohol. And if you have a lot of anger stored in your liver, it comes through when you're drunk. So if anybody has ever had that episode, I definitely had it in the past where I was a little bit too tipsy and I just got angry. And it's because of all the anger stored in your liver that is being stimulated by the alcohol. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, and also it's important to mention that when we are in medical school, or when we're learning about the functioning of the organs, which is similar in vet school and human medicine, but we see each system as separate. That's why nowadays you're also going to find a gastroenterologist, a cardiologist, a gynecologist, and each one of them has its area. But when you see it from that perspective, you're missing out the whole picture. because then it becomes a problem of that system in your body. But what about the rest?
Mhm.
What about all the connections, all the information that is completely intertwined among cells? And this is something you don't learn when you're in vet school. They teach you, if it's a problem of the kidney, you treat the kidney, but you forget the rest of the things that are maybe not part of that system, but are completely intertwined.
Yeah, everything is connected. Beautiful. So we've talked about reducing animal consumption, making 90% plant-based, 5% animal, and what's the other 5%?
The other 5% is for you to play, like I say, 90 to 95 plant-based. So if you have that 10 or 5%, will be giving you the option of consuming high quality meat. If you cannot not live without it, then you have that 5% to play with. So you don't feel like you have to completely cut it and then it will take too much of your energy because you really crave meat and things like that. No.
Right.
Opening up the space where you can play with that 5%, obviously with moderation, right?
Right. Okay.
So that's what it means.
Awesome. What's the second general guidance that you give to your clients when it comes to food and health?
Yeah, I'm just getting excited. I get all excited.
Yeah.
So 95% plant-based, no dairy, ideally. The number third will be reduce refined sugar consumption. And refined sugar is everywhere. And refined sugar, it's not just the white sugar as we know it, but also there's other ways, or there's other products that are very dangerous. For example, high fructose corn syrup is one of the big red labels of bad quality food. And this creates inflammation again in the body. So anything that is too heavy, too sweet, too processed, it's not natural. It's not close to nature. So body doesn't really respond well. And this is where it comes. One of the main principles of food school and holistic health coaching is as close as nature as possible. If you're in doubt and you don't know, if you're in the supermarket or if you're trying to make a good food choice, then you go back to as close as nature as possible. So everything that's packaged, normally all those juices, all the things in a can, all the things that have been in the shelves for weeks and weeks and weeks, when you read the ingredients and when you see what it has, what they have, if there's refined sugar, I would say put it back in the shelf. Look for something else. Look for a different option.
Beautiful. Okay. So as close to nature as possible. Amazing.
As possible. It's a good way to remember, like, should I go for that ice cream or should I go to pick up those fruits? Like, what is closest to nature? So the fruits, if you're craving sweets, it would be better if you some fruit that get some ice cream or some cookies that are being packaged. So
yeah. All right. So sugar. And so how does sugar affect our mood? Besides creating inflammation in the body and making us feel inflamed. Literally.
Well, excess of sugar, it's always going to be excess of everything. But excess of sugar, it's also going to produce, or it's going to affect our pancreas. Pancreas is the same in English?
Pancreas,
Many of them, and I'm going to tell something else here because we have to see, in this case, we have to see the whole picture. It is important for somebody that's always eating sugar to understand the reason of this craving. Because no matter how much you can tell them, hey, sugar is bad for you, if there's an emotion associated with this, or a memory, or some sort of emotional craving, then it's going to be very, very difficult to address this particular topic, this particular issue. Normally, when you crave sweets and you have that need, that you know that you have to break or you figure it out and become healthier, but there's something that you can stop, you always have to go and see the emotional part. And cravings for sweet represents the cravings for sweetness of life.
Mm.
What is it that you're missing? What is it that you're not having enough joy, enough love, enough care in your life? Maybe you feel too lonely. Maybe when you were a kid, mom and dad were not giving you all the attention or all the love and all the sweetness they could provide. So you have to find an outlet and find something that will substitute that need, for example.
Beautiful. All right. You know what I've seen? I've seen people that just, let's say, stop drinking or they stop smoking cigarettes or pot, and they just tell me, now what I do is sugar. It's almost like it substitutes the addiction.
Exactly.
Especially people that were into alcohol. Yeah, there's something about it. And of course, alcohol turns into sugar, so your body is also craving it, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So in order to make better food decisions, it has to be addressed. What is the emotion behind most of the times, especially if we have a food addiction or if we have some sort of craving, we have to go and look the emotional part, because it makes sense. Like, like I have to stop eating sugar, I know, but there's something that it's not letting you go forward. So it doesn't matter if you have a health coach that tells you every day, stop eating sugar, that inside of you, if you don't eat, if you don't look into that, it's going to be very challenging to change that pattern or change that behavior.
Yeah, and it also perpetuates depression, the bad mood, the mood swings, like sugar, because it's a roller coaster. You get the sugar spike and then you go down. I know that for me, when I used to binge eat a lot, it was like the cycle. Like, I'll go for sugar and then I'll feel miserable, then I'll crash and I need it again. And then it was this crazy roller coaster.
Yes, and that's exactly what happens with the mood, because it just gives us that rush of just consuming it, and then it gives us that change of mood because of all the chemicals and all the things that are being released and all the sugar in your blood, and then goes down, and then you're like depressed. You're completely this is a super clear picture of how your mood is completely intertwined with what you eat. In this type of cases, it's super, super obvious. The same with coffee. Like when somebody drinks coffee, because it's already like an addiction, kind of. Like, you drink coffee because you need it to get out of bed. If you don't have coffee, you get moody. You might get angry. You might get headaches. So you have to drink that coffee. So the coffee is gonna do this, and then it will crash. Same thing. So then it's when you're gonna find, you're gonna go and get another cup, maybe for the afternoon or midday, just to elevate that the amount of caffeine that you're gonna have in your body, and that's like the roller coaster and the vicious cycle.
Okay, all right. So coffee, sugar. Is there any other guideline that you give to your clients besides those two?
Yes, many, many more. So, for example, with eggs, many people ask about eggs. I would suggest, if you have any chronic disease or inflammatory disease, that you stop eating eggs, at least for a while. And when you are healthy, then you can introduce them maybe maximum 3 times a week. If it's possible that you have less, then that would be ideal, once a week, if so. But if you can eliminate them forever, then it wouldn't be such a bad idea. And also the eggs, it's very, very important that they come from ethically raised chickens. So they're range fed and they're free. Their beaks are complete. They haven't been under any trauma, really, because we're going back to the energy. You're not just eating the egg, you're actually eating the energy of that chicken.
Yeah. I heard someone saying that if you wanted to align your chakras, to eat like a rainbow, you know, like your plate looks like a rainbow, so you have red and yellow and orange and purple and all of that. So because that energy, the energy of the colors of the foods that you eat also helps you to align yourself with the chakras. So the question that I'm having, so I remember one time I lived with a vegan friend, and she was my roommate, and she was amazing. I'm making all kinds of foods, and they were vegan and very healthy. Now a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of beans, a lot of rice, a lot of potatoes, and greens too. But I remember thinking, oh, I feel a little bloated. Like I can go without meat forever. If I have something yummy to eat, I don't miss it at all. But I remember thinking that it also gave me a little belly, that, you know, eating so many carbs and so many, because I also felt like I crave more food. Like I wasn't satiated. Like when I eat chicken or eggs or fish, I don't eat meat or pork, but it just kind of calms down your hunger. So what would you say? That's like a very personal question, because as you're speaking, and this is not the first time in this month that you tell me this, because I've consulted you about some gut problems that I've been having. And I'm just thinking, how do I make it balance for me?
That's a great question, because even though the general guidelines exist, what I always encourage each of my clients is to start listening to your intuition regarding food choices. Now, you have to be very mindful about giving in to a craving and actually listening. So there's a few things here. When you start eating mainly plant-based, there's always a process of adaptation. So at the beginning, you might have bloating, you might have different sensations in the body, or the digestion will change because the microbiome will change. So you can imagine, for example, I always like to picture it as simple as possible, but inside your intestines, there's millions of bacteria, and they're different types of bacteria. So when you feed or when you eat mainly meat, a specific type of bacteria will thrive, and the other ones not so much. You start switching, then switching to more plant, for example, then this other type of bacteria will thrive, and this one not so much. So there's always a process of adaptation, and during that process you might have more bloating or more discomfort, because your microbiome is not really it's not used to consume so much amount of plants or carbs, for example. So this is likely to happen, very, very common.
Okay.
The other thing is when you're eating vegan and you're eating a healthy vegan, there's going to be a lot of beans, a lot of legumes, a lot of lentils, chickpeas, a lot of greens, a lot of fruit as well. But the idea is that everything is integral. How do you say that?
Like whole.
Yeah, whole, not like processed. For example, if you have white rice or you have brown rice, you would rather prefer eat brown rice, for example. Things that are complete, that are again closer to nature. They haven't pass through that process of um, refine. I think that's like refined sugar, refined flour, refined this and that. No, you want it as close as nature as possible.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm.
And also, like, the body will have a time for showing up different adaptations. However, in a particular case when you're actually gaining weight a little bit, it would be good to see from all perspectives, because whatever we believe about it, we can also bring into manifestation. So if we believe that that particular type of food, or we've learned that excess of carbs will make me gain weight, that's exactly what you're going to experience. So
That
we
makes
have to
sense.
see everything.
Yeah.
Like, if you have that belief, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that's what's gonna happen.
I'm sure I have it. I am sure I have it. So we've talked about 90% plant-based
Mhm.
with a 5 to 10% to play.
Mhm.
Then you said refined sugars, stay away from that. That's going to propel and continue with your mood swings, lethargy. You know, people, when I talk to them and, you know, in coaching sessions, and I go, okay, so what is your homework for this week? What are you committed to? And they're like, yeah, I'm so excited, I'm going to do it. And then I go next week and the next call. It hasn't happened in a while because I am lately attracting amazing clients. They're all so pumped to do the work. But it's happened in the past where they go, it's like, oh, Paola, I was so tired all week. I just couldn't do it. And they suffer because it's like, I want to do the inner work. I want to wake up and meditate. I want to do the things that we talk about in our sessions, but then I just couldn't do it. And, you know, I've had clients that are like, I just had this thing with food, and then food, which we can talk about in another call, the whole binging thing, you know, the whole food, the relationship to food that could be very destructive, that brings so much shame and so much guilt, and plus all the hormones, how they change because of food. And then it's just like a vicious cycle. So with all that we have talked about, so we talked about plant-based, try not to eat sugar. And then the third thing you said, eggs, especially if you have, what did you say? Like chronic
Chronic,
illnesses,
mhm,
mm-hmm.
chronic
Fibromyalgia, any type of cancer, uh,
thyroid,
thyroid, uh-huh.
hormones, infectious diseases as well. And
Okay.
this is something you're not gonna find on a regular nutritionist consult. Like, if you go to a nutritionist, is that's just the area. That's not gonna be the way this person was taught. So the perspective is gonna be quite different in that matter.
Okay.
But here we're considering not just the calories, because I believe not everybody should be counting calories, because everybody burns calories differently depending on the amount of muscle you have. So it doesn't apply the same rules for everybody, but it's more about quality of food. It's more about the fact that it's close to nature. It's about cooking things that are simple. It's about also changing the relationship with food, because this also has to do with mood, very intertwined. Because if every time you're gonna eat you feel anxious because you don't know if you're eating well, if you're not, should I eat this, shouldn't I eat this, okay, like, or if you're watching TV, or if you're watching your cell phone while you're eating, or if you're watching the news, so you're not just consuming the food, you're consuming that energy, you're consuming the worry, you're consuming the violent program maybe you're watching. So this doesn't help with the relationship we have for food. We have to really sit down and dedicate time to flavor, to be grateful, to see the colors, um, to make up a prayer, to bless our food, to connect on a deeper level, considering like, man, this is keeping me alive. This is keeping my temple alive. I
Mm.
should honor this. I should honor the life of the plants, the life of the animals that are here, the life of the person who prepared it, whether it's me or my partner or in the restaurant. Like, it has to do with all this, because if we're like eating in a rush, if we're eating watching TV, this also affects here.
Yeah.
The mood makes us unconscious of that sacred moment of connecting with the food.
Yeah, I love that. I love that about blessing the food and connecting with your food and eating mindfully, enjoying. I know that if I am not mindful, I can vacuum my plate. You know, and that will bring me then irritation in my belly and all of that. So how can people contact you? How can people work with you? What's the way?
Well, we will leave the other. You want me to give fast the other recommendations before?
Oh, I thought you were just going to give a few and then, okay, if you want to give more, yeah, go ahead.
Just to finish and wrap it up, because okay, so fish, only wild caught, nothing that is cultivated, only wild caught fish, very, very important. The other thing, hugely important, is drink lots of water, but not close to the times you're consuming food. Because then you're not helping your digestive fire. You're actually turning down the fire that is in your stomach, trying to digest your food. So very small amounts of water, room temperature during your meals, but the rest of the day consume enough quantity of water. And also I will recommend and suggest that to watch the water documentary that's in YouTube, just to connect differently with water. And okay, obviously other things is avoid alcohol as much as possible. If you want to lose weight fast, cut alcohol from your life, quite important, and eat organic as much as possible.
I love that. Thank you for being so abundant in your delivery of knowledge. I love that. I love that about water. So let's I'm going to put the link of the water documentary. I want to watch it.
Yes, it's game changer. Game changer. That's the point. And regarding your question, people can contact me on Facebook and Instagram on Holistic Health Coaching, and also Food School, which is our paid membership program. And right now we're accepting only women and pretty much the black sheep of the family. We like to call it.
What do you mean?
Meaning everybody that's ready to break old patterns and really take care of their health and empower themselves to think differently, regarding health and life. So not everybody's ready, but many people is ready to make an important change in the way they perceive food, health, and life in general. So it's like an inner joke. A black sheeps of the family are
yeah, the ones that are willing to go to a birthday party and be like, "Oh, I brought my own." My own, because I am committed to change my ways.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So I hope you guys received a lot like I did and got excited to make some important changes. Remember, food creates moods, and if we are in this path of awakening and ascension, our bodies, they're the vehicle that can either be an obstacle for our growth, or they can be the vessel where all that light can come through. So awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, amiga. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone, and I will see you in the next interview.